Hello everyone, I'm Dante and welcome to another This Week in Anthem. We saw another large patch hit the servers that I mentioned last week, introducing new content, Elysian chests, loot changes, technical updates, bug fixes, item fixes, ability and gear changes, along with some Scar-inspired armour for the Colossus and Ranger hitting the featured page. Patch 1.04 introduced legendary missions into the game, allowing at least some way to replay parts of the story. From the ones I've played, it's been good to have a slightly different type of content to run through, with comparable loot to that of a legendary contract. My only real criticism is something I've mentioned before, that the missions should just be added to the game rather than random daily missions. Being able to replay the whole story from start to finish would be a great and relatively efficient change to add to the game, while opening up space for new ways to earn coin, achievements and potential unique cosmetics, much like completing a game on a higher difficulty often offers. The Elysian chests are now finally in-game, with far more available drops than initially expected. You can even go check what items you're missing from these chests within the enclave in Fort Tarsus, which in terms of specific vanity items is 67. Outside of everyone's disappointment with the exclusion of armor pieces within, they are another nice addition to the game. However, so far in my experience, they've had too many crafting options within them. Or perhaps the weighting of the drops is off. By including so many crafting material options, it dilutes the real rewards, making my first run, for example, with 4 chests, being opened full deflated, and my subsequent chests have only resulted in the same pattern, which is a consequence of RNG, but personally I feel this could have been avoided rather easily, by making the crafting materials follow-up rewards for once you have all the cosmetics. Aside from the Elysian chests, we had some general loot changes come in, adding more crafting items to chests and expanding the loot pool for all bosses, fixing an issue with players jumping out of strongholds after the second chest, as previously bosses couldn't drop legendary items. This did entirely break them for the first day, but fortunately fixed soon after, creating more opportunities for loot, especially when it comes to strongholds, emphasised by the inclusion of Elysian chests, which should mean players will stay around longer. So a pretty good change overall, the only downside being the dilution of those contents. Even if a boss loot itself has been boosted slightly, the inclusion of crafting materials artificially increases the RNG. This isn't in itself a giant problem, bar the fact there isn't much to spend these resources on in reality, and even if anecdotal, I have noticed stronghold runs in particular now often do drop more masterworks per run. When it comes to technical changes and fixes, many are NVIDIA highlight updates for automatic recording of events that happen in-game, alongside the inclusion of FOV sliders that were shown in the developer livestream the previous week. These look great in-game and are a much nicer quality of life improvement than expected. I'd highly recommend pulling back the camera for flight, but of course FOV is all about personal preference, and your settings should be fit for you. Along with these quality of life changes, the other major development is the removal of loading screens from the Forge, which has been especially useful while I've been trying out other javelins in the past week. Even if it's not something you'll be doing constantly, it just makes the process smoother. What it really needs now is a better display of information, specifically for stats and managing how bonuses stack. The majority of other notes are bug fixes, which aren't worth reading off, but I have them linked below if you wanted to read up on all the minor fixes. For the most part, you won't notice them. The game should just work a little smoother, information displayed will be a bit more accurate, and less issues should arise from missions. As for all the other changes, these all fix issues with abilities and gear for every javelin, but more importantly, several buffs for these javelins, making components have more impact on gameplay, so regardless of which javelin you play and how you play it, if you're using any of these gear pieces, you should now tank a bit more damage and deal a bit more damage yourself. These changes aren't going to suddenly make high difficulties easier. All the issues with difficulty, loot and the lack of endgame still remain. All in all, this has been a solid patch, bar the first day of release. The major downsides carry over from last week, and are ingrained issues with the game as a whole, so no one patch is going to solve them. With that said, this is a step in the right direction, making the game more playable and reliable for more people. The first phase of the roadmap is almost upon us, and I think this is where we need to see the bigger changes and an impactful event. Lastly, if you are into cosmetics, this week saw a new set of armour hit the featured page, the Scar-inspired armour for the Colossus and the Ranger. These are certainly unique and change up the aesthetic, so it's good to see them finally in the game, along with the dragon scales that a large number of players had been waiting to see. By this point, my opinions on the store page and how cosmetics have been handled in the full release should be pretty clear, so rather than banging on that drum, I'm going to wrap up for the week. As always, I want to hear what you think of this most recent patch, what you like, what you didn't, and what could be done better. I'd also like to hear your opinions on this series. Would you like it to be more strictly news focused, with more detailed information on specific changes, or do you prefer hearing my opinions on them? Perhaps more of both. Let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching this episode of This Week in Anthem. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like or a dislike if you prefer. You can support the channel by subscribing and use the bell to be notified of new content as it goes live. Until next time, I've been Dante, thanks for watching.